Claire, good morning, and thank you so much for coming and being a guest on this little podcast show.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me, Tom. A pleasure.
Excellent. Now, you and I have known each other for a little while, but for people who don't know you, people who've never met you before, give us a little lowdown to you.
Cool. Will do. I'm Claire. I own a business called Claire Sophia. I'm a somatic business coach for women of soul-led businesses. And what does that mean? Like, if you don't know what somatics is, I'm also a yoga teacher. So somatics is helping people feel good, feel aligned, reducing those stress levels, especially as solo entrepreneurs, if you will. I help women who are building their businesses, but also get in tune with who they are as well, and like their femininity. That's what I do now. I've been in the corporate world. That was past life. Let's forget about that. We might delve into that a bit. But yeah, I've come from corporate marketing background, and I've been in business just over a year now. That's a little bit about me. I'm in Manchester. I'm a Manchester lass. so yeah,
Amazing. Oh, there are many threads to pull there. Many threads to pull. We're going to go to the corporate space first, because then we can let it go.
Get that over
we
with.
can get it over with. So, obviously, self-employment is something that you and I have bonded over in the past, and we have talked about it at length. What brought you here?
Oh, now let's go way back before corporate, because I think even when I was a kid, before all this entrepreneurial stuff was around, I always wanted to do something of my own. I was always that kid on the street, like with a little shop and, always wanted to do something. But, nurturing, conditioning society was never sort of guided on that path. Yeah, it's easy to look back, isn't it, over the years and realize I sort of fell into this marketing career as we do. I started working my way up the ladder. And when I realized, like many others do, actually, this is probably not the path for me. I started out actually, I was given the gift of redundancy. I always call it the gift because, I was ready to make that leap. So I was just in a space with my yoga as well. And the path that I was on, it really guided me towards let's just go for it. So I actually started out when I first met you, Tom, as a freelance copywriter, because I was just burnt out. I was like, I don't want to, I'd been managing teams, I'd been looking at strategy. I was like, I just want to write. I just remember, what did I love doing? Writing, storytelling. So I really focused on that aspect first. But then quite quickly, I realized about 6 months into it, things change quickly sometimes, but I was like, I knew I really wasn't. I was basically being a self-employed version of the corporate version of Claire. So I was attracting clients I was very open, as you are when you're starting out. You just need to get going, don't you? So I was working with clients that more in the B2B space still. I was from a tech background, worked with some lovely companies, but I still just felt like I wasn't really making on it that move. And that's fine, because when you're starting out, it's like you've got to try things, you've got to be open. And it's quite funny because I was actually reflecting on said what brought you here. About a year, it was probably about a year ago that we met through the Only Network, and
Yes.
I remember saying something around, I think I want to be more of a mentor to people, and I realized I had all this strategic knowledge and I wanted to pass that on to help other people build their businesses. And I was like, I want to be a mentor. And again, it was that, that limited belief, or that, I'm not ready yet, and all that stuff that gets in the way. And I remember completely dismissing the term coach. And we had a whole conversation about this, didn't we? I don't want to be coach. There's too many coaches. And that was my own shit. That was my own perspective on coaches. And there's all that perspective to do with coaching. But I am now this year claiming that title for myself, because it was like, well, this is what it is. And actually the label or the job title doesn't really matter, because it's me, it's who I am. And So yeah, in a weird and wonderful way, I've just been over the last year allowed to, yeah, like create my business that is completely me, like completely me in terms of how I do business, how I work on myself,
Mm.
how I help people personally with yoga and somatic practices, and then also bringing that into the business side of things as well, and practical marketing strategy and content creation and all that good stuff. So I feel very lucky at the point where I'm at now to, yeah, like have all that experience and that life, all that life stuff comes together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To get to this point.
Amazing. You use an interesting word there, and this is,
Mm.
I'm not going to put my coaching hat on now, but you used an interesting word,
Go on.
which was you were allowed to create the business that is
Mm.
entirely you. And when you're first starting out, year one is hard for everybody. If you
Yeah.
are a freelancer, if you are stepping out of employment, if you're starting anything, the first year is hard as shit. It is,
Mm-hmm.
you can see why so many people jack it in.
Yeah.
Where, or rather, not where, when did you feel that sense of permission uh, arrive?
Yeah. In terms of sort of transitioning to, yeah, like the business now. Okay, so yeah, so I was doing, yeah, we just sort of really open. So I was doing some contract work last year. I did a good few stints of full-time contract work,
Mm.
which was amazing because it was like, oh, I've got work, great, I can pay my bills, yeah. And I did a few stints of this, and I had a break over summer, and then I had this contract work set up again. First time I did it, great. I was just happy to be of service. I was happy to be working. Second time round, oh, not so much. And as I said, like I'm all about somatics, energy, feeling.
Mm.
And the feeling for me was just like, oh, like it was just a drag, you know what I mean? I felt
Yeah.
like that same drag of energy when I was in my corporate career, really, of like, oh, like getting to work and doing this. And like I loved the people, I actually loved the work, but it was just the type of work wasn't right for me. So
Mm.
yeah, I just had to really sit with this and think after this work, I am going to make a commitment to myself to, yeah, like get on with it basically. Like you just have to, sometimes it's like F it, isn't it? Like, oh
Yeah.
well, what have I got to lose? So, the contract work was great because I got to build up, some funds and stuff.
Mm.
And then yeah, like I went to India in November, which is a
Yeah.
whole other story. There's a little mountain behind me. And yeah, got a lot of guidance there as well. And yeah, like after that, I was like, right, year two, different. This is going to be different. So I feel like you mentioned about year one being really hard. Like I'm in year two and it's still bloody hard. You know what I
Oh,
mean? It's
yeah.
like, because I feel like I'm starting a whole new business. I am starting a whole new business really from
Mm.
scratch again because I've had to redo my website, redo, like obviously repositioning myself, connecting. I'm already in this world, obviously, in terms of sort of femininity and spirituality. So yeah, I've got the connections, but it's completely different when you're trying to market yourself and build a business. Yeah, from the ground up. So
Mm.
it's been, yeah. I'm not going to say the J word.
Do it.
It's been a journey, Tom. It's been
Hey,
a journey.
you haven't stopped
um,
believing at any point.
don't never.
Never.
That's what I'm all about. Don't stop believing.
This is it. Looking back to the beginning, because you just, so I feel you. The pivot,
Mm,
and it's a very entrepreneurial, businessy, buzzwordy thing, but the pivot, it happens. We hit that point when we go, you know what, this just is not me.
yeah.
But you've already walked a bit of a path. You've
Mm,
kind of, I think you are somebody who I would say is very aware of your own energy and what you need from it. Others
yes.
aren't, which I think maybe
Mm,
why folks tend to be a little bit more stuck in the groove they first carve.
mm, yeah.
Is there anything maybe that you would have done differently right off the bat when you stepped out of corporate, or you know, as you say, it's a journey?
Mm. Um, again, I'm very feeling. My intuition, I always come back to my body, and when you ask me that, it's a no.
Mm.
It's a total no, because I did not know. Like, we think we should know because we're taught, we're conditioned to, you need to know what you want to do when you leave school.
Yeah.
Like, no, I was in this place of complete surrender and trust, just personally, of I'm just going to go for it. You know what I mean? I didn't overthink it. I think business is obviously a very, a very cognitive thing, a very like
Mm.
getting in your brain and, oh, what do I need to do? But at that time, I was not, I was just grateful to be out of corporate, to be honest. I was just like, yeah, it's scary, but this is, I've heard recently, like, I'm reading this book called Playing Big, and Tara Moore speaks about this concept that we have two versions of fear. And it's actually from the Jewish tradition, like these two different words they have. Oh my God, I can't remember the words, but never mind, let's forget about that. But like basically, we have these two forces within us. I'm not Jewish, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, I'll remember, I'll look back in the book in a bit. But yeah, like there's two versions of fear, and there's like that contracted version of, oh God, you know, we all know that, of like we're clinging too much and we're like, oh, like I don't know what to do and we're stuck. But then there's this other version of fear, which is like, oh, like it's a bit scary, but it feels expansive. So for me, it was like tapping into that, oh my God, I'm actually like working for myself. I just felt like just grateful for that. So I think
Mm.
my fear mode when starting out was very much more, I'm doing this. Like, this is how I teach clients as well, of like, actually, what is the energy you're bringing? So yeah, I didn't. And then, as I said before, like what I then noticed as I started working and as I started doing different client work, that this kicked in again. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, oh no, oh, now I feel like I'm hunched over my laptop again. And so I really tune into my body basically. And this is why I do what I do now, because I realize like, oh my God, like over the last year, obviously, have really been working on myself in terms of my own imprints.
Mm.
20 years of sitting at a laptop feeling like, oh, like feeling very contracted. So that's been a huge part of it as well. It's not just about what work should I do, but how do I want to feel?
Mm.
So I don't, yeah, like I wouldn't have done anything differently because I had to go through that to learn how I actually wanted to run my business and how I wanted to show up for me and ultimately find like the clients that I really do want to work with.
I'm nodding. This is a very bad thing for an audio medium. Yes, 100% that. I think it. The way you describe it, it was very much a process of letting some stuff go,
Absolutely.
which that act in itself is really hard because when you let something go, what are you left with?
Yeah.
Um, which I think may be why some people end up stuck in that groove. They don't tune
Yeah.
in.
I just wanted to, yeah, tap into that then slightly
Mm.
as a yoga teacher, and I mentioned India, like the stillness
Yeah.
and the pause. One of my teachers actually said to me yesterday, "Have you spent any time in silence recently?" Because she could probably tell like I was a bit. Oh, she's like, "Have you done a day's silence?" And I'm like, "No, not recently." Because I literally like, as in my yoga practice, I do meditate. I do try my best. The mind is always on, isn't it? But I really value silence. I really value, yeah, like getting quiet, and it's so hard. Like, I'm not saying it's easy. It's literally a lifetime's practice.
Mm.
But I think that was the basis that gave me, yeah, like gave me that quietening down. Like, what do I really want? And in a way, and I'm gonna weave into this is the thing, I'm gonna weave into something a bit different. I work a lot with what I call divine feminine, masculine, the feeling and the doing. And I think the thing is, like, in terms of strategy or reflection or slowing down, it's quite if you will, a feminine trait of like being in our feminine. Men and women,
Mm.
we're not used to it. We're not driven that way. We're not taught to be that way. Like, if we're successful, we're doing things and we're achieving things and we're earning things. So actually to really slow down and go into strategy mode, but not from a head mode, like actually like relaxing and softening and practicing stillness, and not just for my life but for my business, has been a huge tool for me. Like, yeah, just meditation, quietening the mind, as often as I can.
Yep,
Not easy.
absolutely not. When you're going hell for leather and you are running a business,
Mm.
I'm gonna make an assumption that finding that quiet is not something that takes priority, maybe? Or
No,
how
and
does
I
that
think
show up?
that's, yeah, like this is what I'm really sort of passionate about. Like, I really, like, me personally, and I help my clients do this as well, is like weave it in,
Mm,
because we're always moving, aren't we? I'm here now, we're moving.
you're
If
moving.
anybody's just listening, I'm moving my shoulders. Like, we're always moving forward, we're always moving. So rather than thinking about stillness must be still, like when I talk about stillness, yeah, like meditation, um, God, I could go on a whole tangent about meditation. Obviously, I know we've got mindfulness and lots of different ways in these days to stillness and stillness of the mind, let's say, like present awareness. Like I say, the somatic side of things is actually, it could just be, right, I'm feeling this tension. Where am I feeling it? Where is it in my body? What size is it? What shape is it? Just being with it. So it doesn't even have to be like complete stillness, because then
Mm,
that feels a bit too like, ooh, like again we get into our masculine a bit more of like, oh, like it's rigid. No, like stillness can be soft. Stillness in the somatic world, it's like slowing down even more
mm,
and being with it. So if you're feeling like, when I shift into my afternoon, I noticed that I had like, I would have lunch, I would have a break, and then I'd get back to work and I'd be like, right, what am I doing? And just a little practices of like, okay, let's soften into this again. And yeah, just spend 2 minutes, like just connecting with the work that you're about to do, or like just imagine it. Like, visualization's lovely as well, of like, how do I want this to go? How do I want to feel?
mm,
So it can be woven into just the little bits in the day as well, not about like, oh God, I've got to sit in silence and think about my strategy, but like, how can we weave this in throughout the day? So we're not just sat there like, I must do this, I must do this, which is easy. I'm not saying there's times I'm in that mode now, like I've got to do a lot of stuff at the start of my business again. But so for me, it's the weaving in and out throughout the day,
yep.
little stretches and things. So it doesn't become a, I've got to do this bit here, I've got to do this bit here. Yeah, that's my way.
I love it. I love it. I mean, the way you describe it, that's very uh, something people can draw from. I think
I
if
hope so.
anyone who has just listened to that brief segment has just potentially unlocked their afternoon right
Yeah.
there. Um, Something that's coming to mind. So
Mm.
you have come from a corporate marketing background, which has both the traits of the mechanical and the creative.
Mm.
You are now working with solo female business owners
Mm-hmm.
in a very, I'm going to use the word holistic.
Mm.
My,
Yes.
my
Yeah.
my word, not yours. But if you
I use
relate,
holistic as well.
use
Yeah,
that's
that's
fine.
fine.
Okay, we'll go
It
with
makes
that.
sense.
But you deal with the somatic side of things as well.
Yes.
Those two things, the mechanical aspects of business
Mm-hmm.
and the inner feeling, the personal
Mm.
resonances, they feel
Yeah.
like diametrically opposed almost. How do you bring that stuff together for your clients?
Oh, well, I mean, I guess it's a follow on from what I've just said.
Yeah.
Is so the way I work is very, like I said, I do it with women. Sorry, guys. Like, I made that decision because it's actually very linked as well to our inner wisdom, cyclical wisdom. So a little low down, women are cyclical. We're all cyclical, to be fair, but women on a hormonal level are much slower. Men get their little boosts of testosterone throughout the day, but we do not run the same. So yeah, it was very much driven around, um, yeah, like as women, like how can I build a business that works more with my own natural rhythms?
Mm.
And then, so what I do basically is like we work together on that, on terms of like actually getting connected to your body, to your, yeah, like to your what I call womb wisdom. Really, it is. It's
Yeah.
that we all have it. Even men, like we all have an energetic womb space. That we're all born from the womb, so anyone can actually tap into this. But because, like, I work obviously with women in terms of like, right, getting really connected to your intuition, connected to your gut feeling, um, to then be able to, when we get into the practical mechanical side of building your marketing strategy, I always check in with them to say, how does that feel? Because I'm not here to tell you how to run your bit. I'm not here to like, you should be doing this, you should be doing
Mm.
this. Like, that's not my decision. As a mentor, as a guide, as a coach, it's like, okay, so I'm literally doing this with a client at the moment. We had a session the other day and we got into it in terms of like, right, what are your services? What is your pricing? Let's look at the business stuff per se. Let's look at the mechanics of this. But always then checking in to go, like, yeah, how does this feel?
Mm.
Obviously, ideal client, like, we've done the ideal client work, but like, how does this feel for me? And then always coming back to, yeah, noticing whether it's a bodily yes or no. And because we want to build businesses that feel expansive, that feel good, like that actually we're, maybe sometimes as well we don't want to do things. So let's take social media for instance. I've literally done a silly reel on this morning of like, I work with so many people like, I don't want to do social media, it's this, it's that, it's this. I'm like, okay, like, but we have to be present. Like, we don't have to do social media, but people, our clients will be there, and it's a case of also working with like the resistance as well. So I help people do that in terms of like, how can we undo this a bit? Like, because we can do all the mindset work and we can do all the mechanical sort of personal development, but also it's like in our bodies. So yeah, I really weave. Yeah, I call it a weaving. You said like, how do you blend it together? Well,
Mm.
for me, building a business is the same as creating anything
Yeah.
in your life. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be separate. It obviously is. Like we shouldn't attach our identities too much, which can happen because we are building a business based on us if we're service based businesses. But yeah, like just having this element of, okay, this is how I'm living my life now, and this is it's like that magic of like, oh, I can actually work with myself rather than against it. So yeah, I hope that answers
It
the question. It's
does.
quite a deep dive there of ways and means.
We can go even deeper on that, I think. I mean, it's obviously it's being, you and I share the coaching space in our respective things. I mean, how do you, or even not even how do you, but do you still lean into your own creativity in this
Yeah,
kind of work?
absolutely. Yeah, because it's the best. It's the best kind of work because I'm creating it from a space that is me, that is
Mm.
embodied for me, that feels right for me. I mean, let's come back to sort of conditioning and why I was being like this version of myself. It wasn't really me. I was
Yeah.
told by people, like, you can't mix this. You can't do marketing and yoga. Like, oh, like this is going to be really hard. I was like, watch me. I was like, so we both got
Yes.
that rebellious, you're the
Yeah.
creative rebel. And yeah, again, it takes time, of course it does, but it's like, why can we not? So I get to be my most creative self because I'm really owning like what I do, who I
Mm.
am. Because like I say, even when I was working, perhaps not in as aligned clients as I'd like to last year, I still felt like I was hiding. I felt like I wasn't really being my creative self. I love, like, I mean, yeah, I was having fun, but I think it's just tapped in even further into, yeah, like what I actually really want to create.
Mm.
Like I'm creating a course at the moment that's all about feminine cycles and business, and it's like, who does that, which I'm
Mm.
not seeing much of. So yeah, like it's opened up a massive, yeah, creative channel for me, I think.
That's excellent. That's excellent. I mean, I think anybody who is leveraging their muscle memory
Mm.
and then boosting that with the things with their intuitive side, the feeling and the gut. I go with my gut, like every time. You could logic something out, but you go with your gut. And I think for anyone creating, I say things, I use the word things and stuff quite a lot, but creating things that are meaningful to you in a unique way. I mean, that's the definition of success right there. Because the people will just come. They will come.
Yeah. And it's just, again, it's very like, what I'm doing is obviously my take on things, and it's another way in. It's another analogy that people can use, that can connect with. We go through the whole sales funnel and client strategy and all that stuff, but I've got here like my crystals. Like I literally use my crystals for my own messaging. It's bringing that, sparking something else, and that like business doesn't have to be so serious, doesn't have to be so stuck. Like I really actually, I'd mentioned like working at the laptop before. I now spend a lot more time in my creativity. Like I've got this little sofa in my office, meditation room / dressing room, everything, and I'll sit there and I'll mind map and I'll do things like that. And for so long, I blocked myself from doing that. Because I'm a writer, I should be sat at a laptop. Like I like to write, and I didn't allow myself to draw. Like, oh well, I'm not a designer, I'm a copywriter. All this stuff again. This unlayering of what creativity is. So I've had to play with that as well myself. Of like, actually, you know what? Like, I can sit here for an hour and doodle this out, and then bring it to the laptop. Oh my God, so much more efficient. So much more like the creative efficiency, but also, like doing things. I call it doing business a divine way, but doing things a different way, trying different ways of creating your business, I think is a big element as well. Because I think if you've made that transition maybe from corporate space to then a freelancer or running your own business, it's like we do have this condition of like, oh, I've got to be at the laptop, I've got to do it this way. So I would definitely encourage any listeners like have that element of play as well.
Every time.
Play about with it.
100%. That, I mean, creativity, as you just said, it is play. Like it is an open space, and we forget that. Curse being an adult.
Yes.
A legally recognized grown-up human being. I don't feel like a grown-up a lot of the time. But
that's good.
For us to, it is good. You know what? Really is good.
That is amazing.
But holding that space of play and that space of fun, because I mean, I've said this to you before. I'm sure that if it ain't fun, it's not worth doing. Life is too short.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just had a thought on the feeling and the doing, but the thought train has left the station.
Don't worry, that's the mind. That's the mind. Problem with the mind.
It's escaped. You've mentioned yoga a number of times.
I have, yeah.
And I would love to know where that. I'm sure everyone else would as well. Where did that begin? Where did the yoga journey begin?
To be fair, quite a recent thing. That little thing called lockdown. Do we still mention that on podcasts? Like I was always into my fitness and stuff. I was always fairly, like not a gym bunny, I'd say, but always fairly active. And like most people, see yoga as like a bit of stretching. Oh, it's good for me, I should do it. So it was very much like, if. For years and years, I would do a little bit of yoga. I mainly do stuff at home, to be honest. And it was during lockdown that I really got more into it, because obviously we were stuck at home, and I was like, I stumbled upon a particular channel that she talked a lot more about her anxiety as well, and like how yoga's helped her anxiety. And I was like, oh, then your mind starts to create this connection, like body mind. Oh yeah, like I can't balance today. How am I feeling? So again, it got me into my body. It got me really grounded, and helped me use it as like a little self-check-in tool, which I loved. Just like my own personal practice. And then, God, it was 2 years ago that I went to cacao ceremony training. That's a whole other story. I I also hold ceremonies, cacao, work with cacao, the pure form of chocolate, basically, without all the crap in it. So I was working with this beautiful cacao, and it opens your heart. It really does open your heart. And I left that training. So I think I'm going to do my yoga teacher training next. You know what it's like. We're always doing something, aren't we, in training? And I didn't have one of those weird people that I didn't have, like, again, it comes back to that role. Like, oh, I know this, therefore I must teach now. Like, it wasn't about that. It was like, I really want to learn more. I want to deepen my knowledge. I love the philosophy side. I think we've in the Western world particularly, we think about like yoga as just this mat-based practice. It is like only one tiny amount of what yoga is in like yoga philosophy. The only asana, the only movement, the only shape that was mentioned in the ancient texts was sukhasana, your seat. The only point, yoga means union, and this is why I talk about divine, like doing the business the divine way, because for me it means inner union. It's not about, obviously, yes, there are things you can connect with and deities and energies, which I do believe in, but I'm not going to go there. I'm going to say yoga is union, and that's bringing those parts of you together. So yeah, as you can tell, like I love it. I've been training over 18 months. I've literally got my last session with my lovely yogis. I know you can go off and do a course in a matter of weeks, but it wasn't like that for me. It was like, I really want to deepen this. For me, it's, yes, the journey word. It has been an amazing journey. And if it wasn't for the yoga journey as well, like another path, don't think I would have been able to embrace the entrepreneurial life as much, because that obviously opened up avenues thinking, actually I might teach yoga one day. Like, it didn't even dawn on me when I started my training. It was more of a personal journey, but I do now. Like, every week I teach yin yoga. I teach a yin yoga class, which is very much about stillness. Yin is the quiet practice, the still practice, holding those shapes for 3 to 5 minutes, which is actually, yin is known as the gateway to meditation, because if you do really struggle, as we all do, like with the mind, yin actually really, on an anatomical level, like deep stretching and deep release is really good for us physically, but also helping the mind focus on, like what's going on in my body right now, and there's going to be discomfort, there's going to be things, and then that is a beautiful metaphor or reflection tool in life as well. Like what you learn on the mat, we always say as yoga, like it's not about what happens on the mat in 40 minutes, it's about how you take that out into the world as well. So as you can tell, this is now deeply embedded in my way of being and working, and yoga is life. Sorry, cliche, but yoga is life.
100%.
It's a way of life. It really is, like when you embrace it.
Incredible. You suddenly became very animated, and there is going to be video of this. This is going to be on YouTube as well at some point.
Okay, yeah. So you see me getting geeky about yoga.
Oh, don't. But it's, as you say, it's part of your makeup now. It's part of your fabric. And I think for everybody who is an entrepreneur, who is creative, who is rebellious in how they approach things, we all have the fundamentals, our fundamentals, and the way that we can present those and share those with the world. That's where joy comes from. It is joy.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned joy.
Well, let's touch on that then. Because I'm all about joyful practice of everything.
Okay.
So how do you go with joy in your in your business and how you show up for your customers?
So, okay, I'm going to teach you something now. Here we go.
Go for it.
Get into yoga teacher mode. Joy, bliss. Without getting too geeky about it, basically in yoga there's these energy. You might have heard of chakras, chakra systems. We have these in our bodies, but there's also these things called koshas. Now the koshas are 5 layers of our being. There's the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, that intuition, and then the 5th and final layer is the deepest layer of us, which is the Anandamaya kosha. Ananda means bliss. Ananda means joy. It means heart, connected to your heart. That seed of bliss. And, unbeknownst to me, those few years ago when I started working with cacao in particular, which has the raw form of chocolate, has anandamide in it, which is the only food on the planet that has what's called a bliss molecule in it. it's oxytocin, it's dopamine, it's all that. So when we eat chocolate, like that's why, because we get a bit of that, but in chocolate, it's like tiny percent, you know what I mean, after everything's been added. So anyway, basically, like the way I actually daily connect with my own joy is first, like I start my day with a cup of cacao. I don't drink coffee, like I never have, to be fair. It wasn't like, oh, but coffee is, I know, sorry, coffee people. I know so many people would be like, what? I'm not telling you to give up coffee, but the coffee creates the anxiety. I've always, with my anxiety and like things I've worked through on the body, jitters, coffee gives us that adrenaline that gets us going, which is great. Cacao works similarly in that it actually stimulates our blood flow and gives us that lift, but sustains us throughout the day. So I literally, like, I've got my little things here and like my little altar, and like I have my little cup of cacao, I connect with my heart space. I imagine, I send out prayers and gratitude and like just being grateful for things in my life. I imagine how my day's gonna go. Like I do this, it's called transfiguration. So it's like, how do I really want my day to go? So yeah, and then like, what does that mean? Like again, weaving it in through the day. I have little dance breaks. I had a dance before I got on this, so
Yeah.
I like, my power song and all that. So it's just these catching yourself when it's like, oh, like we're going through that contracted mode again. It's like, okay, like how? So it is this constant. I mean, it is a bloody full-time job in itself, Tom.
Yeah.
But it's like getting into alignment with that inner, that Ananda kosher is not day to day when we're in the day to day and we're like, oh, everything feels like just little drops, little heart, well, just little seeds of bliss is what I like to call them. All about little, let's call it microdoses.
Yeah.
We're creative rebels here.
Yeah.
Microdoses of bliss, I would say, is yeah, like how I approach it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Just, we could all do with a bit more of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot
And
to be
again,
said
coming
for a
like
dance
back to the
break.
body, like even a stretch and
Mm.
like when I'm in my yoga again, I'm teaching yoga and I'm like, oh, did you notice anything in this practice that you thought, oh, actually that feels really good? Maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but oh yeah, I want to do this more. So after this, like I might do a forward fold. I'm like, oh, just like spend 2 minutes finding that bliss, even within the discomfort. Like we can find, we're not just one thing. It's like I can feel stressed and joyful. Yes, it is possible. I know that sounds impossible,
No.
but it's like I can work with the stress and I can also be open to, oh, okay, like where's the stress coming from? Oh, actually, it's because I really care about this, what I'm doing, or oh yeah, why do I care about it? So yeah, I'm not going to go mindset on you, but you know what I mean. It's constantly coaching ourselves basically, to bring back that joy and that alignment, which is not the way we're taught to do things. And that's
No.
why I'm on a mission to help people do that.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, we often are encouraged to find our comfort zone and sit in it
Mm,
and to exist in it.
yeah.
But as you say, as soon as you find the little stretch, as soon as you find the boundary and push past it, not always out into danger.
Mm,
Some people do like living on the very periphery of the stretch zone, which is, I would say, a slightly dangerous space to live.
yeah.
But as soon as you push to the stretch zone, and it is, from all aspects, from a physical stretch and a mental stretch and an emotional stretch, it's growth. That is
Mm.
growth. Maybe it equates to 2 or 3 new customers a month. Maybe it means you can take Fridays off. Maybe it means you can get up off the floor when you've been playing with your kids' Lego without going, oh God, no, I can't.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it is growth.
Mm.
I mean, how does, this is probably my last question about, well, how does the aspect of growth show up for you in your practices for yourself and also for your clients?
Wow, that's a biggie, isn't it? So I like what you just said about, yeah, the comfort zone and the growth zone. I think, and again, in Yin Yoga terms, we have this concept of finding your edge. So yeah, I always am looking for that edge of doing things that, like I say, whether it is doing something like this, or reaching out to people I think might want to work with me, even like actually doing the things that we probably don't want to do, like we feel a bit ick, is like, okay, this is an edge for me, and like recognizing that within myself. So as I say, yeah, whether that is actually on my yoga mat of like, oh, I could actually go a little bit further on this. Like I'm not going to force it, but I'm going to find that point that's like an edge for me that I can be with. So yeah, the growth for me and for my clients is that, yeah, that like leaning in, leaning into it, leaning into whatever that task is or that thing you want to do, or, oh, actually, yeah, I need to do this. There's always going to be tension. There's always going to be some force, especially with creative energy. Let's not get into molecular structures and things. But yeah, like there's going to be a force to then, you know, it's funny. Another analogy. Let's take the crystals again. To create diamonds, we've got to create pressure. Diamonds are literally made out of pressure, aren't they? And so, yeah, for me, that growth is not avoiding. It's not about sort of avoiding the things we don't want to do. It's like we've got to build. If we are building a business, we've got to do certain things. But it's like reminding myself, this is an edge for me, and that's okay. Like that's. I talk a lot about safety as well. Safety, both in bodily presence, but does this feel safe? Which again is a challenge in itself, because our amygdala, that like we're sort of in this world that is very fast paced and quite honestly quite hard to feel safe in. We've had a few years where we've really not felt safe. So yeah, growth for me is like finding that edge where you feel safe to take that action. And then what that looks like is like, for me, for my clients, is like, again, embracing this way of being embodied and stepping into your power, or whatever it is that you want to do, and not be afraid of, like we're going to have a little bit of fear, but that more expansive fear of like, okay, yeah, this is growth. Like this is the real growth that feels good. That feels successful. It might not be monetary. Obviously, it's lovely when the money comes in as well. But for me, that's very, like I want to make money at the end of the day as well. But it's very secondary for me. It's like the growth of me personally and learning more about business is where it's at for me.
Amazing. Well, we've been on a road there. On a journey, if you will.
On a journey. Let's bring it in again.
Bring it in. Bring it back.
I had to sing on this podcast.
Oh, you did. I am going to have a little dance break after this, just because it feels good.
It does.
Okay, for people who would like to know more, for people who might want to work with you, because they really should, how can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. Amazing. So yeah, I like to say my business is Claire Sophia. So you can check out my website, claire-sophia.com. I mainly hang out on socials on Instagram. It's I am Claire Sophia. I'm on LinkedIn as well. If you're friends with Tom, you can find me, I'm sure. So yeah, I'm hanging around mainly on Instagram and LinkedIn in the online world. And yeah, you can check out my website to find out more about services, the mentorship. I work with people one-on-one mainly. So yeah, that's your gig. I still provide as well copywriting services. Like if you're at a stage of business of actually I want to outsource things, I still provide the copywriting services as well, because it's something I love to do as well. But yeah, like my coaching, mentoring is all on there, all on my website.
Incredible. Well, Claire, thank you so much for being here, being part of this, and just bringing that joyful energy.
Thank you so much. It's been fun. It's been good.